So what were you saying about the S-Guys public commentary?
Well, my feeling is that first of all, the comment period should be at least 180 days. Currently, what we're hearing is that Cuomo's only going to have a 60-day comment period, which is far too short.
The Department of Environmental Conservation was supposed to issue its draft environmental impact statement today. Apparently, because of the storm this past weekend, they delayed it at least a week. But when they do make that announcement, that is going to initiate an extraordinary, intense period of activity for all of us.
So I'm here representing Berks Gas Truth. I was motivated enough to come from Pennsylvania today, and I'm so glad I did because it's a beautiful day and we had a huge turnout.
Do you think the DEC has made any improvements on regulations?
Cosmetic, probably, but you know, we all know how these things work out in practice. Is that, you know, corporate abuses keep poisoning the population, and all the regulation in the world is not going to change that.
All right.
We need a ban.
Thank you. You came from upstate?
Sure.
From where?
Delaware County.
Did you guys, do you guys have any impression of this draft S-Guys that's come out? Any of the changes?
There is no way in the world you can read 1,075 pages
And you know what?
and analyze it, dissect it, and come up with questions in 60 days.
But that's a moot point. I don't even care. There's no way that this drilling is safe.
I think the revised S-Guy still has many flaws. A couple of things come to mind. One, it does not have anything that states about the health impact of fracking. And this is a really big issue because we know that in states which have already started fracking, people are getting sick, animals are dying. So I think this is really important that we have to include analysis and study on the health impact of fracking. And another thing is that it's totally, how should I put it? It's just not right that if we sort of ward off the New York City watershed and the Syracuse watershed and then allow other places to be fracked, because if it's not safe to drill in the New York City watershed or the Syracuse watershed, how is it safe to drill elsewhere? I mean, water should be the same for everybody. And most importantly, water knows no boundary. Even if you have a setback of 4,000 feet from the watershed, does not guarantee that the toxic chemicals will not contaminate the New York City drinking water. If you think about it, New York City watershed is not filtered, and the people's private wells are not filtered either. Right? Nobody has their own private wells filtered, so it is not safe for those people who has only 500 feet. My thinking is it's not safe in any case. So we really should have, and also the other thing is DEC does not have the staff to monitor and inspect. And what good is regulations on the books if we cannot enforce it?
The state is proposing to advance hydrological fracturing or hydrofracking throughout the Marcellus Shale, and before taking such a step is required by law to complete an environmental study that identifies all of the potential environmental impacts of such activities and lays out a program for mitigating environmental harm, and that sets forth alternatives that again would lessen environmental harm. So this is a key planning document and a very important tool in figuring out the future of state policy with regard to hydrofracking.
So when the report does come out, what does that mean? What happens when that?
That will trigger a vigorous and healthy environmental review process. There will be public hearings both upstate and downstate. The document is about 1,200 pages long from what we understand. It has chapters on everything from water quality to air quality to traffic to local community impacts. We and the public more generally will get a chance to review this study. We're going to have some experts look at it. The environmental community is going to go over this document with a fine-tooth comb to ensure ourselves that every environmental issue has been examined and to see whether and when it's possible to have a hydrofracking program of any size in New York State.
And so when the report comes out, is this something that everyone in New York should be reading or even can read?
Well, in theory, the documents are public planning tools, so interested persons should be able to pick up a report and read through it and at least understand the gist of the analysis. To some extent, like all environmental studies, this is a battle of experts, and oftentimes you need to call in hydrologists, air quality specialists, transportation specialists, community planners to help identify weaknesses or gaps in the study. But in theory, this is a public document and it's supposed to go into the public decision-making process.
Okay, so people that know a little bit about hydrofracking or have been reading articles, if they wanted to just try to look at the document, is there something maybe that they should look for in it?
Well, they should look for the issues that are most concerned to them. If they're concerned about hydrofracking in their communities, as they should be, they ought to look at the air quality impacts that are projected. They ought to look at the water quality impacts that are projected. They ought to look at the issues of hazardous waste, where the fracking fluids might be disposed of. There are a whole host of issues that need to be examined before anyone could say that a drilling program in New York should proceed. And they also ought to look at local options for controlling drilling practices in their own communities.
What's been improved upon in the document?
Well, this proposal, at least as it was previewed earlier this summer, proposes to prohibit drilling in the New York City and Syracuse unfiltered watersheds. Those are the two main public water supplies in New York State that are currently not filtered. It proposes to prohibit drilling in flood zones, and we know from the events associated with Hurricane Irene that it would be completely nonsensical to allow any kind of hazardous activities to take place in flood zones. It purports to protect primary aquifers, which are the main public drinking water supplies for other communities, and that element is also a positive one, although it needs to be reviewed further. So with respect to those limited areas, the program itself is a significant improvement over the previous Patterson administration draft. We're still concerned about such issues as hazardous waste disposal and what happens with the hazardous waste. We're concerned about traffic impacts. We're concerned about whether the state has the ability and the staff and the resources to monitor, enforce, and implement any program of regulatory safeguards that it might put in place. Right now, the answer to that question is no, the state does not have those resources. And so NRDC has said we will not support a drilling program in New York State until and unless we're convinced that the state has adopted the most comprehensive regulatory safeguards in the nation and has a phased, limited program so that one could determine whether it can be successfully implemented, and then has all of the resources and financial commitments to protect public health and the environment in communities around the state. Right now, those are a lot of unanswered questions.
In a recent Exxon Mobil commercial, they said there's a mile between the watershed and drilling, and so is that like a flawed statement to say that that makes all the difference?
Well, New York City officials have indicated that there's the possibility of contamination through fracking, even if the fracked portion is significantly below the reservoir, the water table, the water pipe infrastructure. So if in fact ExxonMobil is suggesting there's no risk from that, at least the expert reports that we've seen so far would call that determination into question.